Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So last night we had key primary results out of 4 states, including one additional congressional district in Texas, in South Texas, ancestrally Democrat district that flipped Republican last night. And altogether, we had a lot of good results. There were a couple areas that were a little bit underwhelming or disappointing, but we got rid of one of the impeachment 10 rhinos, and he had an embarrassing showing in South Carolina. So we are going to dive into all of this and more, but I have to tell you guys first about my very good friends over at My Patriot Supply. Guys, temperatures are not the only thing rising. Gas prices, food prices, tensions throughout society, global conflicts, supply chain breakdowns, you name it. Experts say the looming global food crisis will be worse than any year since World War II. What should you do? Go to preparewithredeagle.com right now and get your long-term emergency food storage while you still can. My Patriot Supply is America's largest preparedness company with millions of satisfied customers. Their food lasts for up to 25 years in storage. When you need it, it will be there. Act quickly and save $150 on a 3-month emergency food kit providing breakfast, lunches, dinners, drinks, and snacks totaling over 2,000 calories a day. You won't go hungry. Go to preparewithredeagle.com. Save your $150 right now. Once again, that is preparewithredeagle.com. So we have to dive into this. Let's start off with South Carolina, because we had several races, but the most notable one was in the 7th Congressional District, where Russell Fry, who was a state representative, very solid on all the issues, was running with Donald Trump's endorsement, utterly destroyed the incumbent Tom Rice in this matchup. Tom Rice did not even get 25% of the vote in his own district as an incumbent. That should tell you how hated he was, and he was just an all-out flip-flopper his entire career. His record before 1-6 wasn't even that bad. He actually voted to object to the Pennsylvania results in 2020. He was one of those representatives that voted to object, and then he voted to impeach Donald Trump for something that he didn't even do. And he's going on all these networks. He's trashing Trump. He's blaming him for everything. He's basically turning into Liz Cheney as we speak. And as a result, he lost. He got crushed. And this is the canary in the coal mine for a lot of these other impeachment Republicans. I mean, even Valadao underperformed expectations in his district, and he was like the least at risk. Tom Rice gets 25%, not even, and you're looking at people such as Peter Meyer, Fred Upton. You look at the remainder of the list, Herrera Butler up in Washington. All of these characters, these establishment losers, are collapsing before our very eyes. And as we know, Russell Fry has defeated Tom Rice, so you love to see it. But on the other side of the coin in South Carolina, we had a disappointing result in the 1st District. Nancy Mace survived her primary against Katie Arrington. She won with 53.1% of the vote, which is horrendous for an incumbent, but at the same time, Trump did endorse Arrington, and it was a very big disappointment because Nancy Mace, even though she didn't vote to impeach Trump, she might as well have. I mean, if she would have voted to impeach, she would have ended up losing her primary big time. She's horrible on all the issues. She's very liberal. What is she conservative on? Like, a lot of people said, oh, she was like libertarian or whatever. Well, first of all, that doesn't cut it. But second of all, now she wants gun control. She can't even be a libertarian properly. It's hilarious. And you look at the fact that she was very liberal on everything and still was able to win a majority of the vote. Part of this was because of crossover voting in this district, which did actually happen. And you did end up seeing this here with the fact that she actually overperformed William Timmons, who was an underratedly vulnerable incumbent. But we'll get to that in a minute. But crossover voting was definitely a thing. We have to end open primaries. It is ridiculous. Mace outspent Arrington significantly. Arrington was underfunded. She still put up a good fight, but it's like we have to get Mace out of there. And I think we can in 2024. And the reason for this is that Mace now has this mandate. Oh, I was like a liberal Republican and I won my primary despite having a lot of opposition. And she's going to be even more liberal now. So hopefully 2024 we can knock off Nancy Mace, her getting 53.1% of the vote. A little bit disappointing, but she was very close to being primaried out of there, which was good, and hopefully we can find a better candidate to go up against her next time than Katie Arrington. But beyond that point, in the 4th District, William Timmons, as we can see here, a very just moderately weak Republican. I talked about this very briefly in my South Carolina video. Like, the only thing that he's known for is how much he hates online poker, which again is a non-issue. And he's just an establishment old guard Republican, and he only finished with 52.7% of the vote. Now, a lot of people didn't expect it to be this close. He had several primary challengers, but nobody really expected any of them to really gain enough traction. I actually called this. I said it's going to be close to like a Boozman situation in Arkansas where he would get below 60 based off of some polling and data that we saw, but he ended up just narrowly edging it out. And it's like, well, if Trump actually didn't endorse him, then maybe he would have lost, which is another interesting thing. Because if Trump would have endorsed the very pro-Trump pastor in Mark Burns probably would have gotten more of the vote, and Timmons would have fell below 50 and possibly would have lost in a runoff there. A very similar situation to what we saw in Mississippi, where you have these surprise flips or near surprise flips in the case of South Carolina. But either way, we'll move on to North Dakota, which not a lot happened. John Hoeven barely got by at the convention, and he won big, but he went up against a no-name opponent and couldn't even get 80% of the vote. So I guess you'd have to say that more people are waking up in primaries. If the no-name underfunded candidate that basically was the sacrificial lamb primary challenger got 22% against an incumbent senator, you never know. Again, Hoeven is somebody who almost lost at convention to very conservative state representative Rick Becker. However, he ended up advancing, and he ended up winning his primary easily there. But it shows that we are infiltrating the state parties if they could almost knock off their entrenched incumbents at these conventions. But beyond that point, what we're seeing here, as you look at down in the state house, there's a lot of people, a lot of solid people, Zoomers even, that were winning some of these races, or at least advancing. You look at, I believe, Matt Heilman. I think he actually might watch the channel. He follows me on Twitter. He's like 20, and he ended up winning his primary, or advancing in his primary, because I think that they have 2 people per district in the state house in North Dakota, but he actually ends up advancing, so he's likely going to go into the state legislature. So you absolutely love to see it. It is the slow ascent to power that we're seeing. Some more bad news, though, out of Maine. Bruce Poliquin, who is a very establishment representative. All he cares about is economics. He caves on a lot of social issues. He's basically indistinguishable from Jared Golden, the only moderate Democrat in Congress who actually votes like a moderate and has bucked Joe Biden's agenda at many times. Bruce Poliquin is going to advance to the general. He might lose. You had an America First candidate in Liz Caruso, very solid on all of the issues. She got 40%, which is pretty good given the fact that Poliquin had a lot of name recognition, but sadly Poliquin is going to advance. But if he goes into Congress, if he wins and he sucks, well, maybe Caruso could get him in 24 as the primary wave increases, and you see more people rising up. You absolutely love to see it. We are not black-pilled at all. We are very excited. This is not going to be all accomplished in one cycle. This is a fight that's going to take between now until the end of the decade to get solid people in power at every opportunity. But either way, it is disappointing nonetheless that Poliquin ended up winning. But in Nevada, we'll get to Nevada, and then we'll get to the big congressional election in Texas. So Adam Laxalt won easily. And he is going to likely win the general against Cortez Masto fairly easily as well. Now, they're still counting the votes, but we understand that Laxalt, he won easily outright by 22 points over Sam Brown. And I think Laxalt's a very solid candidate. He is going to be instantly one of the better senators if he wins in November, which I believe he will. I think he'll win by a likely margin, actually. Cortez Masto is very overrated. She should have lost in 2016. She ran up against weak opposition. Now you have Laxalt, you have a red wave, you have Nevada trending to the right significantly, and you have the state party taken over by crazy people, which, by the way, you go down ballot in the 1st District Dem primary, a lot of them threw their support behind Amy V. Layla, the state party. They wanted to get their Bernie Bro candidate in. How well did they do? 17.6%. That is how incompetent these people are. It is hilarious. They are completely incompetent. They couldn't even get their preferred candidate in a primary above 17.6%. It is embarrassing. These people are a joke. So Secretary of State race, Jim Marchant, very solid on election integrity. He almost cracked 40%. He has won, and of course they're going to be like, oh, he's crazy, denies this, that, and the other thing, and it's like, whatever. The guy is actually solid. He wants to limit mail-in voting significantly in the state, which, again, Nevada has a massive mail-in system, and he wants to limit that. So I think that's a very good thing. I'm glad that he won. Hopefully he wins in November. I think he will, especially because the top of the ticket is fairly strong. And the governorship, you saw Joe Lombardo win, Trump's endorsed candidate. Lombardo, he's a little meh on a couple of issues, but I think overall he's relatively a B-tier governor or so. We would put him in the B tier category on the governor's tier list from what we know. But he's been running a very solid campaign. He was endorsed by Trump. He was much better than Dean Heller, who was a former statewide elected official in the state, and he only got 13.5%. Total rhino Dean Heller gets completely destroyed in the primary. And you saw in a close second, based America First, boxer Joey Gilbert getting 27.6% of the vote, winning every county except Clark and a couple counties around Clark, which, again, Clark County is where the population center is. That's where Joe Lombardo was sheriff. It's absolutely hilarious to see the fact that Dean Heller couldn't even get third place in Clark County, which is so hilarious. But beyond that point, guys, I think that Republicans are going to win every single statewide office in the state of Nevada. I think they'll win and sweep the House races as well because of the dummy mander. First District, Mark Robertson took the W. Caroline Serrano seemed to be more of a hardliner on the issues, but Robertson is endorsed by Andy Biggs. He'll likely join the Freedom Caucus. I think he's a solid candidate for that district. I think he could beat Titus in November. Sam Peters, the best candidate in the 4th District. He also has been projected the winner, which you love to see that. And then in the 3rd District, April Becker, who is the more establishment choice, did win, but it was very unlikely that she would have lost. So take that as you will. But either way, you look at turnout in these races, even in some of these Dem districts, and what did you see in the primary? You saw the fact that Republicans had a 10-point lead in the 3rd District. They had a 5-point lead in the 1st District and a 44-point lead in the 2nd District when it comes down to turnout. Now, you could easily sit back here and say, well, Democrats didn't have these contested primaries, but either way, it shows where the energy factor is, especially as you see the fact that there's some more Election Day vote remaining in the 1st District, among other things, and you see Republicans very energized, and Democrats did have some, contested primaries or primaries that were supposed to be more contested, and that didn't really materialize. I'm talking about basically all of these districts there, but the state party is just so incompetent that they couldn't primary out any of the incumbents that they really wanted to. So that should tell you everything. But beyond that point, let's talk about Texas's 34th, because this was the race of the night, and this is in the old district. This is not the new district, but this is a Biden +4 district. The Democrats won it last time in the House level by 15 points, and Mayra Flores won last night in this district. The Republican candidate, Republicans combined for nearly 53% of the vote, and this is a district in South Texas that went for Joe Biden, and you see a swing to the right of like 10 points or so since 2020, which means these trends in South Texas are not slowing down. And on top of that, you look at the fact that this district is 85% Hispanic, and Republicans ended up winning it, which is absolutely huge. And you heard from the neocons, you got to cave on immigration to win Hispanics, this, that, and the other thing. But Mayra Flores didn't really cave on it. She was actually a hardliner regarding the border, was decent on legal immigration as well, comparatively speaking to most Republicans. And she ended up winning an outright majority of the vote. So these neocons have been lying to you for the longest time. They say pander to Hispanics to win them. You have to be weak on immigration, and that doesn't work. Doesn't work at all. And I will say this, because there's a lot of people that are like, well, look at these Hispanics, they're voting Republican, immigrations is less of an issue now. And it's like, no, that's not how this works. In fact, it's literally the opposite. First of all, this district is majority Hispanic, but most of them are 3rd generation or beyond, or they are Tejano voters. They have lived and have ancestry in that area for over 400 years. They are probably more American than most people in general in terms of their ties to the land in Texas. I will say that. So these are not immigrants. These are not recent arrivals. These are people that are likely well assimilated. They have more of a tie to their Texan or American identity than they do to Mexico. In fact, they have no ties to Mexico at all. They are Tejano voters. And these voters are the ones that swung right heavily in 2020. You look at the fact, yes, Hispanics in like other places in the country, yeah, they all did swing right. This is true. But Tejano voters, they're a unique phenomenon. These are the counties that were swinging right by 50. Like, yeah, it's true. The Bronx swung right by like 10. Interesting. I don't know if that'll continue. It might continue a little bit, but by how much is the real question. They might hit a wall. But Tejano voters, these are very winnable. What's happening in South Texas is unlike anything you've ever seen. And like, these people don't want mass immigration either, comparatively speaking. These people have lived there for so long, and they are very fed up with what's happening at the border too. So like I said, it's like you hear people that are like, well, you're a hypocrite because you want an immigration moratorium, but Republicans are winning Hispanics. And it's like, well, they're winning like third and fourth generation Hispanics. Those that come over first generation are still voting 80-20 Democrat. Like, if anything, you are making an argument in favor of an immigration moratorium. The largest shifts we've seen are from Tejano voters and third and fourth generation immigrants, which again, if you turn the off switch on immigration, or at least lower it to net zero. I think there's like 150,000 people that leave the country each year. Maybe you could replace them with like a merit-based system. I don't know. But either way, turn off the switch for 25 years, allow assimilation, and then voting patterns, then we could maybe talk about seeing a change, right? Because like I said, the largest Hispanic shifts are from these Tejano voters. They're from these Cuban voters. They're from voters that have been here for 3 or 4 generations. They're not exactly these people that are crossing the border that are like having ties to the cartels or MS-13. Like, seriously. And if you look at, the fact that white Catholics, a lot of groups like Irish Italian voters, they were heavily a part of the New Deal coalition. They voted heavily Democrat up until recently. In fact, white Catholics were a bellwether. Now it's just Catholics are the bellwether, right? White Catholics now vote, 60% Republican almost. And a lot of these people came over after the Civil War, but before 1924, because you had a moratorium that was instituted by Coolidge when he signed the Immigration Act of 1924, and immigration rates dipped significantly. And these people assimilated because of that moratorium, and now they are shifting hard to the right. And you're kind of seeing that with these third and fourth generations. Like, these trends have always kind of been there, one could say, but you have mass immigration, and that's a major problem. And if you want to win Hispanics, you got to be tough on immigration and shut down the border. That's how you do it. Allow these groups to assimilate. And as a result, what you are seeing in South Texas is exemplary of that, because a lot of these people have been here for so long. And just like a lot of ancestral blue-collar voters in the Midwest, they are fed up with the fact that the Dems are going far left. The term Latinx in and of itself is kind of aiding and abetting this too. So Republicans taking that district in South Texas with a big shift there. You love to see it. Could Flores win in November? Depends if the trends continue. Her district has gotten a lot bluer since then, admittedly, because of the redistricting. So it's possible that she could win in November, depending on the hidden trends. Could they continue? Because these special elections and primaries don't entirely always grasp that. So stay tuned. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle out.